because of the time arrangement. I fully understand that you are based in Mexico. It should be quite late at night, yeah, today. And of course, nice to meet you again, even though we do it now online, not offline. And also my colleague, Ibu Retno Susanti, Ibu Diah, and all the coordinator, Ibu Landung, Ibu Intan, Mbak Intan, and all the participants. It's very happy for me for that we can continue our lecture series in different topic, and very grateful that today we have a nice topic on or related to the urban regeneration. As for you, Ilana, this lectures is actually as part of our regular program in the department. We invite different scholars with different background and discipline that might still relevant with urban and regional planning, and very happy to have you. And I think you are one of the lectures quite, I think it's even the furthest ya, yang paling jauh tuh the furthest ya, far away from Mexico. Normally we have guests from Asia, Europe, yeah, and I hope you can share some experience from Mexico, yeah, and I believe there's also in a way similarities, yeah, in most cases between Mexico and also Indonesia, and yeah, and thank you also Bu Retno and Bu Diah to moderate and become the host lecture for today. And I hope all the participants, we also have some colleague from our department and also students. So most of the participants is our undergrad students, Ilana. So I hope we can enjoy the session and have a fruitful discussion later on. Okay, I offer back to Intan, and thank you again. Yeah, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you, Prof. Vivi, for the opening speech. So, without further ado, we will go to the main session. I will hand this session to our moderator, Ibu Diah. Please welcome Ibu Diah. The time and screen is yours. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Intan. Okay. Firstly, good morning and good day to all participants international lecture series of urban regeneration. On behalf of Urban and Regional Department Diponegoro University, I am Diah Intan. I will be your moderator for this session. Firstly, I will introduce our first presenter from University of Veracruzana, Prof. Ilana Boltvinik. Please, Intan, show the CV. I will read the CV from Dr. Ilana Boltvinik, Instituto de Artes Plasticas, Universidad Veracruzana, Mexico. Prof. Dr. Ilana Boltvinik is a visual artist and researcher, co-founder of TRIS, an independent art-based research collective. And these areas of expertise is art-based research, study of waste, extra and transdisciplinary methodologies, sociology, and urban study. I hope our department can join research with you, Prof. Ilana, for this urban study. And current position is full researcher, artist, Instituto de Artes Plasticas, Universidad, Veracruz, Mexico, and co-director TRES and pedagogic team member SOMA, Mexico. And this is the selection publication. Please, next. And this is a prize and award from Dr. Ilana, Professor Dr. Ilana Boltvinik. Thank you, Intan. And now I would like to invite Professor Ilana Boltvinik to give a lecture about counter expedition and counter mapping in complex urban space in Mexico City garbage scenario. Please, the time is yours, Prof. Ilana.
Thank you all very much, and I'm very sorry about the mistake of the time, but I'm very, very happy and honored to be here with everybody. and I'm going to share the screen with you. So before I start, I just would like to say that what I will propose to everybody here is an experience that comes from the sector of arts. And the idea is to have, to turn around the idea of expeditions and of mappings in a way that becomes more human, more qualitative, and more multisensorial. So one of the bases of the things that I would like to say from the beginning is that living a city is essential, and understanding a city from how we live it is also a super important part. So I'll explain a bit. So one of the things that is important here is that it is art-based research, which means that it's not only the artistic practice is not based on making objects, but rather exploring and investigating in a deep sense. So I have been working with garbage in the collective Tres, which was founded in 2009, since and we concentrate mainly on how garbage forms urban space. So it's not about sustainability directly, but rather about an archaeological approach that can link you from the past to the future and back. So the context of where most of my investigation takes place is in Mexico City. So Mexico is quite a big country, as you might know, which has a very oppressive type of double colonialism. We were conquered, as you may know, by the Spanish, which gave it a certain amount of colonialism, but then we have the United States on the top, which has a second phase of colonialism. And this is important because it makes the formal and the informal live in a very strange way, and the different points of view. So we're a country with very many cultures, but that has been more or less put down by several million. No? So Mexico City, which is right there, it's not really in the center of Mexico, but it is more or less in the center, has 129 million, the census of 2022. So we are a big country. And what is most important to know is that of those 129 million, 21 between the census vary enormously from 21,800 to 24 million people live in this red area, which is the urban sector of Mexico City. So even though the political frame of Mexico City has only 9 million people in the center, it is much, much bigger. No? And this is important because then sensing a city becomes quite an unreachable thing. It's huge. No? So a bit of how I'm going to, or what I'm going to talk about and how I'm going to talk about it is divided in these three sections. First, the counter expeditions that have to do with the before you map. And I would like to share with you a methodology that comes from the arts, but is applied in urbanism, and that can have very sustainable outcomes if it is done gathering the correct information. So the different stages that I will frame is gathering the archives. When I say archives, I do not mean only looking in a library or looking through archives literally, but making an archive which has to do with also the world and the things that exist in the world. The focus in and focus out, how you choose or what you choose and how you frame the problem you're going to do. And then at the end, and perhaps for me the most important part that I would like to share with you is how this becomes translatable to a wider audience, which is also for me an important thing that has to be done in urbanism so that the ideas can get out there and things can start happening. Please, if anybody has a question or a doubt, feel free to raise your hand and I will try to answer them as we go along. I know we have time at the end, but it just, so, counter expeditions. Why counter? Because you have to go against what is thought to be an expedition. An expedition is usually quite a colonial activity, or at least that's how we frame it from this here where I'm from. And one of the main points of the counter expedition is seeing how you can turn the questions around. One of the most important things is how you develop a question and how you can actually always turn it around. So one of the things that Bruno Latour says in his network actor network theory is one of the keys to understand how things are happening has to do with transporting places and objects. And this cannot be done physically most of the time because you cannot transport a piece of land or you cannot transport a monument. But what he means by transporting has to do with this act of translating the information into different types of and levels. One of the things that in artistic practice is fundamental and for urbanism as well is photographs and drawings. You know? So how you can be in front of something and start capturing the wide frame of things that are happening there. Second, an activity that we all know that is scavenging. In Mexico, we have a phrase, a pre-Hispanic phrase, a word, it's pepenar. And that literally means selecting through going down to the ground. So you go down to the ground and you select things and pick them up. In this sense, pepenar is what I call an activity that should be essential for all urbanists, which is scavenging for information in different levels and different scales. In my case, in particularly, garbage has become important. So it has to do with collecting certain objects, seeing what they mean, how they mean, and trying to read them. Reading objects as if they were pieces of cities or micro-universes. Another important thing is meeting people, both people that live in the city and people that have been working on the city. Meeting with people in this sense has to do with situated knowledge. So it's important how many people come close to you that actually know things that are very particular to a zone. And we'll see how this works out. No? And finally, the archival and historical documents, which is a focus. One of the main activities or methodologies is a mapping that can work for understanding your priorities. And so what you're seeing here is a project that's developing through garbage, which is the main nucleus, and it is linked to do two different sectors. One has to do to research and how the different types of research are interconnected, and the other one has to do with collaborations and how you connect with community, with specialists, with people that live in places, and how these axes then after coincide. No? The process of designing or making graphics or mapping these types of things becomes fundamental to lay your ideas out spatially, and to have an idea, a concrete idea of how things interconnect. So this is a project of 2009. Well, there are several projects here, one of 2009, one of 2014, one of 2019, that have to do with actually going to the city and picking up data in the place. So rather than just, what you're looking here, for example, at is a phenomenon that probably happens everywhere in the world, but it's a bottle of water that is filled with pee, with urine. So it has to do with the fast pee society. This is a concept we drew from the idea of fast food society to a fast pee. Men that don't have time even to stop in the toilet to go to the bathroom, and they just have to do their necessities in a bottle and throw it through the window. Or a collective project we had where for 3 months we were picking up all the garbage to see the routines of people. So rather than follow people and understand what people do through interviews, we started seeing it through garbage, because garbage, as William Rathe says, never lies. Garbage always tells us the truth of who has been there and what use and how. So one of the proposals I have is that an indicator of the use of public space should be done through the quantity and types of garbage that you can find in those public spaces. So this is part of a project that has to do with chewing gums in the pavement, and we were trying to restore the chewing gums. And so first, the idea is how you can be there and understand what's happening, but at the same time record it and have material to examine afterwards, because of the concentration. Another strategy that might be familiar to many of you has to do with drawing maps and drawing garbage. So the garbage becomes a map of how it has been used and disposed in the city, how old it is, how many ruptures it has, how faded away the material is, can help us understand that. And drawing it becomes an activity of recognizing all these micro indentations that the city has on it. Or this was a project in Hong Kong where taking old maps and redrawing them helped us connect to the way the shoreline was laid out. I'll get to the Mexican part in a bit. So the second part has to do with the focus, in focus, out of focus. And this has to do with classifying and tagging the archive. We usually take around 12,000 photographies in each project. And one of the things that becomes fascinating is when you lay out all the material you have and start classifying those photographs, you start seeing that certain things appear that you had not seen when you were walking around. So the camera becomes like a second eye and helps you and enables you to have a very particular and dialogue with the city. But it also enables you to have a zoom in and zoom out, changing of scales. So one of the things I like to say is that photography has the ability of putting something super small, like a piece of small garbage, next to a huge map, and this will make them look more or less the same size. And then when scale starts not being an issue, then you start realizing that everything is entangled in a multi-scalar way. So the idea there is to reduce the images, but also to create these small focus groups. And the other thing is, I am not certain if any of you know what the thing theory is all about, but one of the things that we use a lot in art has to do with following the traces of the objects, thinking of the life cycle of each object, where it came from, where it is, and where it will go. This can happen with very small objects, and it can happen with very big objects, but this starts helping form like a network of associations between humans and non-humans that also makes the view on the urban more complex. When we follow the traces of garbage, then we can understand that it travels in Mexico at least to 3 or 4 different states. I'll get back to that. And all the garbage of Mexico City that cannot fit there anymore, 24 million people making garbage and taking the garbage out. So one of the things that I like to say is that the frontier of a city is always the frontier of where the garbage of that city goes. Huh? So here we have some examples of this classification. The 3 months of picking up garbage in 5 streets of Mexico City led us to try and categorize the materials we had. And also it was a very insightful experience for my students who, from having a big pile of garbage, reduced everything to these small packages of similar materials to try and understand what the composition of consumer society in Mexico City is all about. So here we have some plastic, like chip bags. This is toilet paper. We found amazingly a lot of toilet paper in Mexico City, which talks about the necessities of people in different public spaces and what public space is really used for. This, for example, is a multi-scalar level of a chewing gum project, where we were thinking of the molecular qualities of chewing gum. So we started studying chewing gum in urban space because our initial hypothesis was that the chewing gum can be an indicator of the levels of pollution in the city, because it's so sticky, and with the heat, it gets sticky again. And then all the different types of air pollution that are floating around get stuck to the chewing gum, and we can actually understand what the air in a certain moment was like. So the different levels of studying these micro objects or garbages help us understand much bigger scales. And for example, in that chewing gum project, we found Escherichia coli and a whole lot of bacteria that are flying around that became central for the public campaign of the city government, to understand how many bacteria chewing gum can keep stored inside. So we have the molecular qualities, and all this went up to the archaeological story of chewing gums, and we wanted to encapsulate the chewing gums that were thrown in the public space so they can be an indicator for future archaeologists. I hope I'm making this a bit understandable. If not, please interrupt. So when walking around Mexico City on ground level observation, one of the things we start mapping are actors, or actants, as said in ant theory. And on one hand, we divided it between humans and non-humans to try and see the interaction between both of them. So we have individual actants that use the space and throw garbage in the space. Now, pedestrians, neighbors, workers, and hawkers, for example. It's very common in Mexico for people to take their garbage out and put it in the corner. So we have a lot of clandestine corners that become like dump sites. And this is because there is a very peculiar way of collecting garbage in Mexico that is done in very different hours of the day. It's not a stable hour, and the bus passes with a bell. So if you don't live in front and you can't hear the bell, it's very difficult to understand when the garbage is around. So people take the garbage and put it in the corner. Then we have collective actors that become an essential part of our investigations. the municipal cleaners. There's different scales here also. There's public held and also privately held people that clean the street. There are formal workers and informal workers. It's a very mixed system in Mexico. And we have different types of governments that rule downtown Mexico City, which make it even more complex because it was, until a few years ago, a federal state. So there's a federal government that has its command over the city, but it's also a city command. So these two different levels of government are always in dispute. And as I said, the formal and informal happen all over the place. And also that happens with commerce. So one of the interesting things that I can tell about the experience in Mexico is that the government doesn't want to make formal bins for informal commerce or street hawkers, because then that would mean acknowledging that they exist. And they don't pay taxes, and they are, well, mostly illegal and just taking over the streets. So any type of formality with the government would mean acknowledging they exist. And this becomes a problem. And then you have a lot of associations that are interested or have very different and controversial interests in downtown Mexico City. I'm giving you a very general overview. When we have questions, I can gladly answer anything. And then the non-humans, which are super important for our work and that I think every time would need to be more deeply considered in urbanism, has to do with the way we design cities for other types of lives to coexist. No? So all around garbage, we have animals that usually are not very welcoming for humans, like rats, cockroaches, dogs, flies, and bacteria. But we have to think how we design cities in a way that incorporate different types of lives. No? I now don't live in Mexico City, I live in the forest. And every time it has become more important to understand that as humans, we are a minority here. And the balance between a human life and the rest of their lives is a way of coexisting and, well, sustaining, I think, the world in a different way. No? And we have here trees, because if the garbage is not put in a corner in Mexico City, it is put next to a tree. So the trees become like a standing point for people to throw their garbage. And then the non-humans, we have the non-humans that are not alive. And the non-humans that are not alive, of course, are the tangible things like garbage and urban furniture or public art that become standing points or hidden spaces for things to happen. But also the intangible, like the laws and the communications that give us an idea of what is going on. So here we have on this side a diagram of the different actors, the ones that are closer to the garbage and that actually love garbage because it becomes a source of livelihood. And the outer circle are the ones that are against the garbage or further away in the relationship with garbage. And as you may see, one of the things that surprised us a lot in this thing is that there's very many people that live and depend on garbage, many more things than those that are far away and don't like it. So in 2001, our landfill, that was one of the biggest landfills in Mexico, closed down. And the city became a chaos. Here you see this is the center of Mexico City, and it's one of, I think it was just a couple of days that the garbage truck did not come and get the garbage. So one of the things of tracing the garbage, the life cycle of garbage, is that it leads you to all the organization that holds the city invisibly. Most of the cities can collapse if the garbage goes on a strike. So I'm going very superficially with all of this, but I hope it's understandable. So these are the street cleaners of Mexico City, and they have constantly been changing the carts and the way things move around, but this has become very complex. This is a dustbin in Mexico City, but it's full of garbage all around because this is not capable to sustain the quantity of people that are throwing garbage away. And this is the landfill. Translations. So one of the things that we propose through art as profoundly important in urbanism is the idea of public participation, how you can engage with people and how you can make a topic important for someone other than yourself. In this sense, we have three different ways of translating the things we investigate, but this, of course, can be done in many, many different ways. I'm just giving you three examples for now. One is through exhibitions. One of the things that is very interesting about art is that it's multisensorial, and you can also use your body. And so the experiences of translating what is happening in a complex urban environment into a smaller scale exhibition help not only understanding by reading, but also understanding by being there. I'll give a few examples of all of this as well. And another thing that is interesting is the translation of all that information into books that are not necessarily designed or thought of as academic books, but rather as books that can help translate into two dimensions that we have seen. And third of all, actions, performing art or action-based art, which is a way of instigating dialogue. It has been a very useful tool to provoke people to think in different ways. So I'll let you know exactly what that means in 1 second. So I don't know if you see exactly what all these things that are lying around there are, but they are cigarette butts. And so we collected 350,000 cigarette butts. 40,000 of those cigarette butts were pinned to the wall and numbered, as you may see here, from 1 to 40,000, pinned like if there were butterflies. All the rest were thrown into the floor. And there was this format to analyze each cigarette butt in the middle. So what happens with this is that when you walk into I don't know if you can imagine what it is to walk into a room that has a smell of 350 cigarette butts, but this goes all the way deep into your body. Yeah. And just putting all those cigarette butts together in a certain space was a way of understanding how many and what the effects of one cigarette butt can be in an urban space. Now, you don't understand it until it repeats humongously in a different level. So people will walk into the room, smell it, and go, "Ah!" and go out. And then they sometimes they would usually come back in to see what was happening. But it was a very, very strong smell. So this is a type of action that makes it go into your body, and something there happens that is interesting. In the books, for example, this is the chewing gum book, the project of the chewing gums. We have here this is the cover of the book, but it's also a diagram of the chapters, a conceptual diagram of the chapters. So you have the chewing gum in the center, but then you have the urban perspective that is basically the sociology of attractors. So we were interested in seeing when people throw their chewing gum in the street, where they throw it. And so we understood, for example, that there were many more chewing gums in places where people are waiting for a bus or waiting for something, or where, so people usually are in a stoplight. There are a lot of chewing gums near the manholes because people try and throw the chewing gum into the manhole, and usually it doesn't fall in. And so that became very interesting to see human behavior through the traces of the chewing gums. And we have another perspective on this side that's more of an anthropological perspective, where we started wondering why people chew gum and what they do while they chew gum. So to activate that conversation, we held a contest of a sculpture, making sculptures with the chewing gum in your mouth. You couldn't use your fingers, only your teeth. So you would chew a chewing gum and then make a sculpture. And this gave us the possibility of talking about why people chew gums, where they throw the chewing gum, what significance it has, and it becomes an issue of how people go about their chewing gums. And what you see here on top is the result of the investigation of the bacteria in the chewing gum. So this is the cultivation of the bacteria of the chewing gum and the different bacteria that we found in the chewing gum. And so having these types of drawings and these types of images into a book helps also generate the multiple perspectives. And we have the part I was telling you about, which you will see in a moment, which is restoration or preservation of the chewing gums in public space. Counterintuitively, we would think that we want to clean all the space, but by saying we wanted to preserve the chewing gums, a controversy happened, and that provoked a conversation that was very interesting. And this is the scientific one. So we did this action in the center of Mexico City in a street called Madero. Madero is a street that has every Saturday 1.5 million people walking by. So through the municipal government, we could surround, it was about 2 square meters of the space, and we were cleaning the chewing gums on the ground. So first we cleaned the ground, and then we used a restoration method, like if it were a monument, and we were cleaning the ground. And one of the things that was in the chewing gum, so what happened is that people would see us disguised as something that looks semi-official, because you can't recognize the suit, but it looks like a suit, an official suit, but at the same time it's not an official suit, so that people don't know if it's private or public or what's happening on one hand. So the disguise matters to hold a certain type of conversation. And then kneeling down and being there made people come over, and we did this action for around 8 hours for a couple of days. And so what happened is that we started talking to people about what we were doing. Well, here we are preserving chewing gums in the ground. And people would say, oh, really, are those chewing gums? I had never thought that those black spots on the floor were chewing gums. So you have different levels of participation that become very important. So the first level is people that just passed by and said, hey, it's super great that you're cleaning the chewing gums. Other people will come up and say, you're restoring chewing gums, but aren't you supposed to take them off? Why are you leaving them? Why do you want to encapsulate them? Why? No? And so this starts a conversations about what chewing gum means and how you approach it. Or third of all, people that got so involved that they started researching how you can reuse chewing gum to do pavement, or what is the chemical structure of chewing gum, and this became very interesting. So I'm almost about to finish. I just wanted to show you one last thing. I'm coming back here. Okay, so if this is Mexico City, which is in this dot, our garbage is taken to all this periphery. Huh? So you have a couple of dumps that come this way. Let me show you. A couple of that come this way. No, all this part is taking all the way here. All this part is taken, some of it here and some of it here. Huh? So in that sense, the frontier of Mexico City and what we do becomes more than the double of its territory. And this is super important to understand the city. No? The limits and the frontiers of a city are drawn by different types of things. Garbage is one of them. So I just wanted to share that with you. And well, it's more or less the time frame that I have been given. So I'm going to stop here for the moment, so that we have time after to go back and see if any doubts or things have been, are there in the middle. Yeah. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Prof. Ilana, for your very nice presentation. I just surprised that about the chewing gum, because chewing gum in maybe in 17 or 18 is popular, but for these young people now, era 2000, they are not popular with chewing gum. So the chewing gum is not a problem for us, but we have a lot of problem with waste in the river. Usually people throw the waste in the river, not in the road or the pedestrian, something like that. So it's nice to know about the waste in your country and in my country too. Okay, now we can go to next presentation from Dr. Retno Susanti, Ibu Retno Susanti. Firstly, I will introduce Ibu Retno Susanti from Urban Design Laboratory, is a senior lecturer and have and focusing conduct their NC conduct research focusing on urban study, incredible sustainable urban planning design. And Ibu Retno Susanti have a lot of participate in the association like an Indonesian Association Planner and Indonesian Urban Design Research Association. Also, there is some research project of a lot with urban studies and urban research. Okay, next, Intan, and this is some selected publication from Ibu Retno Susanti. And now we must continue with Ibu Retno Susanti presentation. The time is yours, Ibu Retno Susanti.
Thank you, Ibu Diah, as a moderator for this morning. Good morning and good evening, Ibu Ilana. Okay, Ibu Diah, can I share my presentation?
Okay, yes.
Okay. 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 Is it clear for you?
Yes, it's clear.
Okay. Ibu Diah, maybe I will ask you to share my presentation from your computer. Is it okay?
It's okay.
I will close my presentation. Yeah.
We can help you.
Okay. Thank you, Ibu Diah. Thank you, Mbak Intan. Good morning, everyone. I'm very honored and humbled to share my experience with you all this morning. On this occasion, in the international lecture series with the main theme of urban regeneration, I will deliver the sub-theme of gentrification that occurs in the area around the campus. Urban regeneration with specific aspects of gentrification is known as studentification. In my previous research, studentification turned out to be not only about the concentration of a large number of students in one location, but its impact was able to change the built space and social culture of the community. The short and long-term impact of universities on the surrounding areas are often overlooked when developing spatial plan, especially urban spatial plan. These changes have an impact on the wider urban space, including infrastructure provision. In this lecture, I will explain the changes and their impacts and try to provide suggestions on how to integrate university development plan, including the increasing needs to students who continue to grow every year with urban spatial planning. Hopefully, this will be one of the answers to the challenges of university existence and its impact. Okay, before getting into the deep aspect, we need to consider how urban regeneration relates to gentrification and studentification through the following definition. Urban regeneration is the process of revitalizing and renewing urban areas that have experienced decline or neglect, and government or private sector initiative to improve the physical, economic, and social aspect of a neighborhood or community. In other hand, gentrification is a specific aspect of urban regeneration. Usually, wealthier individuals or business move into a previously low-income or working-class neighborhood. So, in this location, increase in property value, rents, and the displacement of long-term lower-income residents. The following illustration, please next. Show the physical improvement of building in a block, which is preceded by a change in occupants and a change in the social structure of the occupants due to the entry of people with higher socioeconomic capabilities. Next illustration. The next illustration is the condition of historic buildings in Berlin before and after gentrification. It is like gentrification in old town part of the city is almost like this type of gentrification. Please next. The terminology of gentrification mutates over time and become more specific to the location and object of gentrification. So it's making easier to us to explain and describe what is happening in this area because the location and object is very clear. Gentrification research continue to evolve and become more complex, and now we know the new terminologies derived from gentrification, such as coastal gentrification, rural gentrification, studentification, new build development, super gentrification, tourism gentrification, commercial gentrification, and this is unique, beautification. This is a gentrification with a high aesthetically visual and maybe a physical of this building. And provincial gentrification also we know about that. Next. What is studentification? The term studentification was first proposed by Darren Smith in 2002. And Smith also argued that studentification is a form of gentrification, which is a process in which a significant proportion of the students' population in area affecting the neighborhood to be different from before. The studentification is almost all happen in surrounding of university or in higher education. Fincher corroborates from a geographical aspect that there is a relationship between the rapid growth of students in a place and the gentrification of that place. This is a same definition and same maybe also same with the studentification that Smith said before. Please next. So why we be aware of the impact of studentification? We know when student arrive in an area, the impact is not felt. Likewise, if only a number or a group of university students come, stay for some times in an area, the impact may still not be felt much by the community. However, what about when the number of students become very large, very huge, reaching tens of thousands, dominant, and compared to the number of indigenous people, there will be thousands of need for accommodation, consumption, transportation, and recreation. Students will certainly look for a location not far from campus, so the needs of their activity must be supported by the area around the campus. The process of meeting these needs will bring other parties such as investors, new employees, new activities into the area around the campus and accelerate the studentification processes. This next. I tried to make a diagram to show you how studentification proceeds. The first student arrives, and then the students in a huge number need accommodation, consumption, transportation, and recreation that cannot support in a previous area. So capital and investor come make land ownership sell their land. So land ownership transfer from the native people to the newcomer in this area. And so physical, economical, social, environmental changes in the affected area. This is a Smith name studentification area. This next. What changes occur in the studentification process? There are four main things that change: social, economic, cultural, physical, and environmental transformation. The fourth, social transformation. The movement of a social group to a part of the city can reconfigure the geography and change the socio-economic and culture of that part of the city, especially surrounding in the campus or university or higher education. The second is indigenous residents who have long lived in the vicinity of universities are gradually displaced and move out due to spatial dysfunction. And the development of studentification area will only fulfill the needs of the student subculture, so that the needs of the wider community or native community are no longer the focus of this provision. It's full for the origin people, yeah. And for economic transformation, the increase in property prices is related to the changing role of residential houses into houses with multiple occupants. In Indonesia or in Semarang, maybe we can call as kos-kosan with the house ownership. This is a house with multiple occupants. The previous house changed into rental houses to meet the needs of students as well as changes in the type of occupation of home owners. The second of economic transformation is increasing economic capacity of community means that many commercial functions are open for local needs. And last, for economic transformation, flowing capital of housing provision is an economic contribution of the studentification processes. This next. And the unit in cultural transformation, the arrival of students as young migrants in the location around the university triggers cultural transformation from a previously existing culture to be a different culture. So that we know that young people, maybe Z generation or millennial generation, they have a specific habits, specific focus, and specific hobbies that different from the people or native people that stay in studentification area. And the physical transformation of the environment. This is the majority of change is occur in the physical form of properties that undergo conversion from single-family dwellings to multi-occupant houses. But physical changes can lead to environmental degradation that corroborates that the physical transformation of building and neighborhood due to studentification has caused environmental quality to deteriorate. And the last, for physical transformation, environmental quality deteriorates due to, among other things, increased building density, increased waste generation, and an unmanaged environment. Next. After we know the definition, causes, and changes that occur in the process of studentification, I will then deliver some examples of cases and problems of changes due to studentification and its impact. Okay, the first, this is a example for change in built-up area. This is example of a physical change in the environment. Located in Tembalang, this is a Undip campus and surrounding area. This is the area of Kelurahan Tembalang or Tembalang village. Undip began building in Tembalang since 1980s and gradually moved academic activities from Peleburan campus before located in Tembalang. The activities gradually moved to Tembalang until 218. The figure ground map created for 10 years shows the distribution of buildings and from 2000 and 2010 is when the most changes in the built-up space occurred. In the 1990s, the built-up area in Tembalang village was only 2.21 hectares. And in 2018, it had reached 54.69 hectares. What about unbuilt area? The unbuilt areas are land owned by the army and steep contour land that is not easy to become built up. The area of Tembalang urban village is only 268 hectares, and half of it is Undip campus. Undip campus is the bigger part of Tembalang villages. Next, we move to second cases. Is still in Tembalang. The changing characteristic of society. This is a changes in community characteristic are one example of socio-cultural changes. Here we show an example of the distribution of migrants compared to the native population in each airway and RT. This is the group of some household. We maybe 20 household is in a group of RT, and some of RT maybe 4 or 5 RT make a group as RW, rukun warga. The blue chart, this is the 8 RW in Tembalang. I show you that the blue chart shows the number of natives, and the orange chart show the number of immigrant or newcomer in this area. There are 3 areas where the immigrants population outnumbers the native population. 4 areas where the 2 are balanced, and 1 area where the immigrants population is almost entirely present. The last area that the almost immigrant entirely present is a new housing estate built by developers. All of the diagram clearly show that the indigenous population or native people is increasingly being pushed out by the presence of newcomers. Many natives sell their land and move to other location where the land value is more affordable for them. Please next. The next is another case for provision of infrastructure. My research, the previous research, show that the increased infrastructure that I conduct in 4 locations. This is an example of physical and environmental changes. The 4 area, I try to calculating the demand for clean water, waste generated, and transportation generation. These 4 locations are campuses in Semarang with a large number of students, so that the need for infrastructure in the student diversion area is also huge. And the results of the calculation are compared when the needs of people who live and have local ID cards, jadi only local or native or people as a permanent resident that hold ID card. And I compare with the people with ID card plus the assumption of the number of students, university students living in the area. The result is show that, please next. This is a table for 4 locations that I researched before. For clean water demand, I compare only if the permanent resident with ID card comparing with permanent resident plus student in a higher education live in this area. The clean water demand increased from 1.14 times to 3.94 times more than the fulfillment of needs for residential alone. And the waste generated increased between 1.26 times to 4.34 times more than the expected standard. Please next. This is a table to compare what the transportation generate by the same calculation, only local resident with ID card and calculating local resident plus student that live in this area. We know that the VCR, the normal VCR is below 0.85, but we know the level of saturation or VCR is only one location is still normal, that is in area around PGRI University campus. The 3 another studentification area, the VCR is exceeding standard value. For example, in Undip, the value is 2.20. Pardon, please next. Both tables show gaps in infrastructure provision, leading to adverse environmental impacts. The lack of clean water is overcome by the local community by exploring groundwater on a large scale, unmanaged waste, and road capacity that is jammed and congested at certain times. This is an infrastructure provision issues. Please next. This is a change in the characteristic of the build space, showing the difference between characteristic of the previous dwelling and the current house, which is typically of a student education area. The case still taken in Tembalang villages around Undip campus. The character of the original residential building is semi-permanent, single house, one floor, with a large yard. And currently, there are scattered residential buildings that are upgraded to HMO. Please next. HMO is a house in multiple occupation and PBSA, purpose built student accommodation. This is a several example of HMO and PBSA. This next. Still same case of HMO and PBSA. Next, furthermore, the positive type of studentification emerges is the change in environmental characteristics. Specifically, in this example, is drainage channels are organized and become a system so that they can help drain water during rainfall. Precisely. Next, change in economic characteristic. Please next. Using the case around the campus as an example, still, the study was extended to Tembalang, Bulusan, and Kamas village, still in around Undip campus. The livelihood of the previous residents were farmers, in accordance with their rural condition. This agrarian character changed after the entry of various kinds of trade and services provided by investors to meet the needs of students. Various small and medium business sectors are based in the studentification area. Residents who were originally farmers were forced to adapt to other livelihoods that are services. The following is the example, the various types of trade and services available, transforming this area from a rural character to an urban character. Okay, please next, Mbak Diah. Yeah, still same sample of economic transformation. Please next. Okay, next. Yeah, after examining some cases of change, we look at the challenge of the university in relation to the city and society. The following tables identify important interrelated issues that need to be addressed in order to find the best way to integrate them. Every campus must have a strategic plan for development in the short and long term, especially related to the provision of educational infrastructure and the increase in the number of active students. The increase in the number of students with the need for accommodation, consumption, transportation, and recreation is ultimately supported by the surrounding area so as to create a studentification process. The city and the university need to work together to synergize the campus development plan with the city spatial plan. The city spatial plan becomes a guideline in the preparation of city development programs so that the area around the campus that experiences studentification no longer develops spontaneously but can be better controlled. This aimed for the economic, social, physical, and environmental sustain. So the surrounding area, including the original community that already exists, it can be better sustainability. Changes in the character of the community, which has become predominantly young, I hope do not reduce the existence of service facilities for the elder community. Please next. The following is a proposal on how to integrate the campus development plan with the city spatial plan. There are three things that need to be considered for the integration option, namely spatial utilization system, spatial utilization control system, and form of spatial plan. The way to integrate can be through a discretionary system, which is utilization and control, based on a joint decision between the university and the city government. The second way is through the regulatory system, where the university development plan, along with the specific master plan of the surrounding area, is included in the city spatial plan and becomes a local regulation. Okay, and last, the conclusion of my material. The first, this issue show the need to integrate the university long-term development plan with the preparation of the city spatial plan so that the city government can anticipate the provision of adequate infrastructure that needs. The second, collaborative planning between university, government, city government, and city council is showing potential solution for generating new urban spaces which in turn produce collective benefit within the city. And how to integrate the development through three activities. This is a spatial utilization system, spatial utilization control system, and the form of spatial plan. Okay, this is all. This is our material about studentification, along with some example of transformation cases that I provide. Each type of change, actually, due to studentification, still has a more in-depth study that hopefully we can refer in the future. Thank you for your kind attention. I will back to the moderator. Thank you for everyone.
Okay, thank you very much, Ibu Retno Susanti. From your presentation, we just have a lot learn about how our university activity has changed a lot of in urban area Tembarang, from land farm to the mass farm. Okay, now we will move to the third session about the question from the presenter and the participants. So I would like to invite to all participants to join us. To all participants, you can ask to the presenter directly or indirectly, you just raise your hand, or indirect, you just type your question in the column chat. But now I see in the column chat we have two questions for Professor Ilana. I just would like to invite Prof. Ilana to answer a question in the column chat from Miss Landung, Ibu Landung, and Ibu Wakida.
Yes, thank you very much for your questions. Very interesting. So one of the things, Landung, to answer your question is how to raise awareness through urban actions, for example. One of the things that I have found very interesting to engage strategies of a wider public, not only youth, but a diverse range, is that I think one of the things people are very tired of is to hear what they have to do. You have to throw your garbage in this place. You have to divide your garbage. You have to recycle, or you have to use this, and so this becomes very an imposition. So, for example, by doing things that are strange, you can start a conversation, and that can engage you profoundly in a awareness that becomes a self-discovery of the people that are participating, and not something someone told them. So, for example, with the chewing gums, that's just to go a bit deeper into that. One of the things that happened is that people would not believe, or would find it very strange, that we were actually enjoying keeping these things instead of removing them, because they seem to be these dirty spots on the floor. And by doing the exact opposite of what is expected, a very controversial discussion starts, but then people start thinking and engaging in different levels. As I say, I think it's always a multi-level engagement. So that is one way, but there's also public actions that involve the practicality of the groups. So sometimes you can have, sometimes this works through, for example, one of the things that has worked very well is an open call in the university that can help students investigate something without it being necessarily strictly academic. And so exploring urban space in very playful manners as a way to discover again. For me, the interesting thing is how to generate questions that capture people's attention. So, and for me, the provocation technique has always been very, very powerful to encourage participation and to encourage people to think more deeply into what the city or the urban space is all about. So I don't know if I answered completely, but
Okay, thank you very much, Professor Ilana. And for the next question is from our class 2, Ibu Wakidah Kurniawati. Is about, yes.
Yeah, thank you. Yes, garbage is a fascinating thing, and thank you for that comment. So I don't think, I mean, traditionally, there's I don't know how you translate this, but el método de cuartos, the way of measuring garbage in fourths, which is very typical of urbanism. But I do think that every working group has to design their own methodology. It works, I think, a bit better. And so I don't think there's a concrete answer to how to collect the garbage, but I can say this in several levels, no? It all depends what group you're working with. In my collective, we're usually 2 people, but these 2 people always grow into teams of 19, 20 people, or teams of 3 or 4 people. It all depends which is a project. So sometimes, mostly at the beginning of our experience, we walk. I think walking through the city, through the town, through the place, wherever it is, next to the river, not swimming in the river, but next to the river, to see what's there is super important. And walking and just paying attention to everything. So walking and looking gives you a very, very good perspective at the beginning. And then after, you can start collection. So I think there's also 2 different ways of collection. One is picking up the objects, and the other way of collecting is also collecting it through images. There are certain types of objects that are very difficult to collect, because if you collect organic waste, you won't be able to hold on to it very long, and it becomes a bit complicated, no? So sometimes each project or each context determines the methodology. Sometimes you start noticing patterns, and so that becomes the thing you need to collect, because you see a pattern and that pattern starts speaking to you. I always say that objects are very powerful and they have the capability of speaking to us. We just have to pay attention and try and understand how they are speaking. So sometimes it's through repetition, and so then you understand what you have to pick up. Or sometimes it's because you always find things that are very particular or very outstanding. The Mexican garbage trucks, for example, collect garbage and separate it while they're on the route. And they have not too many categories, but they have the category of cardboard, glass, metal, food, of course, but they also have this other category that's called in Spanish chacharas, that has absolutely no translation in any language, but it's just odd objects. You know? So I like to speak of them like ovnis, unidentified lying objects that are very different in each space and in each time. You know? So they're unique pieces. So that's another strategy. Sometimes something calls your attention, something unique or something you haven't seen before, which is quite strange because trash is very global these days. No? And sometimes you have to design very precise methodologies. For example, for the first example I gave, we would walk 5 blocks downtown every day, 3 times a day, picking up absolutely everything we found. No? So that was the strategy, just to see exactly how much was produced in the morning, in the afternoon, and at night in each of these different streets. And so we would have a sense of something to compare. So I mean, I can go on saying how many strategies there are, but I think it has to do also with how many team members. These days, you cannot think that you have a project and you will have 5 or 15 or 20 people. I think that these days has become very complex. So it always becomes important to readjust your methodology once you have the amount of people and the amount of time these people can invest in the project you have. I hope that answers your question. Sorry, very difficult to pronounce, but if not, please let me know.
Yeah, thank you very much, Prof. Ilana. For us from technical student or basic technical, usually we just want to know how never think about the strategy about the art. Jadi so you just make a public participation strategy in which into the art. So it is much interesting for me, Susanti. Maybe you can give for us tips how to make arts in which for to collect public participation, something.
Yes, well, that's an interesting question because I think one of the things I love profoundly about art, contemporary art, is that it has the capability of becoming a platform. So the first thing I would say is invite as many people from very many different disciplines as possible and very different know-hows. And there's a like the strange attractor theme, which helps a lot. No? So if you have in a room, for example, a biologist, a sociologist, an urbanist, an architect, an engineer, and you put in the center something that is strange, totally strange for everybody, or totally familiar for everybody, it can cause a meeting point. No? This is what is called a boundary object, no? An object that can be seen from many perspectives and that has very many different interests invested in it. So out of the talks with different types of people, many times you start to understand that the perspectives or the way you see something is completely different. Huh? And so that is one part that is very important. And another part that is super important is the capability of having spaces of speculation, of having a space where the strangest and most exotic ideas are welcome, no? Even if they're completely insane. No? Like, I would like to go to the moon and see with a telescope the garbage of Mexico, no? Which sounds totally insane, but that can trigger ideas of how to see things in different ways. So first you have all these fabulous, strange, exuberant ideas, and then you see how these ideas can translate into a more human scale and possible environment to be done. No? Like the use of metaphors or analogies is super important for that. So, yeah.
Okay, thank you very much, Prof. Ilana, for your tips. Maybe next time our department can have some collaboration with you. Okay, next, we have a question for Ibu Retno Susanti, is from Ibu Maya Damayanti. Please, Ibu Retno Susanti, you can answer the question.
Thank you, Ibu Diah. Thank you, Ibu Maya Damayanti, for interesting questions. I agree with you, Ibu Maya, because kelurahan and kecamatan are actually they are the one who knew very well the condition in their respective area in the most detail. But however, our rule and regulation do not provide the opportunity to kecamatan and kelurahan to be able to regulate. Like a kecamatan, they cannot participate to regulate. They don't have the perangkat or aparat or employee for help them to forbidding or to maybe menertibkan the extensification of function that not suitable with the location. We must support kelurahan and kecamatan to empower them. So because they are two institutions that know every detail of their location, and they know every centimeter of their land. And I thought I agree with you to empower them. So in maybe in local regulation, so they can regulate their area or their administrative area in a good way, and in maybe in a permanently empowered gitu. I think that's all, Ibu Maya. I hope is my answer is enough for you.
Okay, thank you very much, Ibu Retno Susanti. I think I agree also with you about you must support about the local regulation in tingkat kecamatan or clan about the commercial facilities. And the next we have a question from a student. Maybe you can answer, Ibu Retno Susanti.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for the question. To reduce the damage that done by gentrification in long term, in previous material, I propose how to integrate the master plan, not only master plan for campus only, but master plan the campus and surrounding area must be integrated with the urban planning, and the urban plan we can empowered by the local regulation or perda. We know that every university must have master plan, but I think is very sad that the master plans only for university. Maybe we can propose for urban government to make master plan for university and the surrounding area, and integrate with the RDTR or with the RTRW. So this is maybe is the steps or the phase that have us to provide and to reduce the or anticipate the lack of infrastructure, the lack of transportation, and the damage in the environmental area. Thank you, Diah.
Okay, thank you very much for your answer, Ibu Retno Susanti. And to all participants, I just invite again, is there any question? Okay, if there any question, because of time, today is Friday, Prof. Ilana, so usually we have a time to prayer, Jumat, in a Friday, this Friday, so the time is, we must end now. And for this morning international lecture, I would like to conclude. Topic in this morning are about waste and studification. So the spot topic is very related with our topic interest in our department is about urban regeneration. And in urban regeneration, we just learn how to making more attractive place to live in urban area. From Prof. Ilana, we have learned about how to mapping waste process as an art that can create a public participation strategy, and from Ibu Retno Susanti, we also learn how to mapping the process of neighborhoods, change in the urban area. So thank you very much for your interest topic, Prof. Ilana and Ibu Retno Susanti. I just close this international lecture and I give to Intan. Please, Intan.
Okay, thank you so much, Bu Diah. Thank you, Prof. Ilana, Bu Retno, such inspiring and prominent discussion we have here today about urban regeneration. We know from the Mexico side and the Semarang side. And all thank you, Bu Diah, for moderating the main session. And the next, before we close this event, we would like to say thank you all for support from the honorable all people here for our lecture, our department. And next, for the documentation purposes, yeah, we usually do this to have a documentation from here, and we would like to invite all participants to open the camera. We will have the photo session after this. I will try to screenshot for each page, and okay, we will still wait for the other participants to join with us to open the camera. Okay, we have 4 pages. Now we start 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. Again, next, 1, 2, 3. Okay, thank you so much. It is for the next pages. Okay, so only 2 pages. Okay. And this event about to come to very end. I hope you found the presentation today are informative and very helpful, and we hope this event will bring an inspiration and a positive impact for all of us. And please forgive us for our shortcomings when we held this event, and we look forward seeing you in the next series. I hope you all have a good day and see you. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam.
Thank you, Prof. Ilana. Terima kasih, Bu Retno Susanti.
Thank you, Prof.
Thank
Bu Retno. Thank you,
you.
Bu Diah. Thank you, Bu Landu.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
See you next time, Prof. Ilana.
Yeah. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.